What if the secret to confidence, peak performance, and even happiness wasn't about being perfect all the time, but learning how to access a powerful brainwave state on demand? In this conversation, I'm sitting down with Dr. Izzy Justice, neuroscientist, performance coach, and author of Your Brain Swings Every Club, to explore the science of brainwaves, trauma, and what he calls chasing 10 Hertz. Fellow golfer, I am so grateful you have decided to join me for another episode of the Scratch Golfer's Mindset podcast. Again, my name is Paul Salter. I'm the golf hypnotherapist, your host of the #1 mindset and personal development podcast in this golf space. Remember, here on the podcast, we're real, we're honest, we're vulnerable, and we use golf as a mirror of your own personal development journey. And every single week, I'm going twice a week until at least the end of 2025, which means you get a raw, vulnerable, deep dive solo episode every single Monday. And then on Thursday, I am joined by some of the most brilliant minds in the sports psychology, performance psychology, and high performance spaces. And that holds incredibly true today, where I have the opportunity to sit down with Dr. Izzy Justice, who is the Chief Neuroscience Officer at Neuro580, a groundbreaking company focused on addressing mental wellness in the workplace. He brings 3 decades of experience in human capital, healthcare, and business consulting. He's worked at Deloitte, Cerner, and Premier, and he's an executive coach who has coached over 30 CEOs, dozens of chief people officers, as well as multiple athletes, helping them to unlock and optimize human potential and performance. This is a gem of a conversation. I get incredibly personal. Make sure you listen all the way through until the end, because I'm going to ask the questions that deep down you're probably timid and hesitant to ask, because I want the answers that you do too. What do I need to know and understand about my brain's perception of time and all of the ways I can influence and better experience presence in the moment? There's so much wisdom in this episode. You're absolutely going to love it. And hey, when you do have that aha moment, Dr. Izzy shares something that rocks your world, shifts your perspective. Hit pause. Write it down. Take a screenshot of the podcast, share it on Instagram, tag me, tag Dr. Izzy Justice, and at the Golf Hypnotherapist, and share this episode with a fellow friend, golfer, somebody who needs the kick in the ass to get out of their own way and become the best version of themselves. Without further ado, let's dive in to this wonderful conversation with Dr. Izzy Justice. Dr. Izzy, you have done several, and I underscore several, ultra endurance events. Why do you do these events?
Well, first of all, Paul, thank you for having me. I don't know how many of your audience do these kinds of things, but they're very addictive. And you always tell yourself, "I'm only going to do one," and then when you do it and get that high, that dopamine hit, you say, "Okay, well, let me just do one more." And then you say, "Okay, well, if I can do an Olympic distance, let me do a half distance, then let me do a full distance, and then I'll just do one and quit." And then it just goes on and on. So it's a typical, endurance athlete story, and one led to the other. And as you know, if you've done a few of these, when you cross that finish line, whether it's midnight or any other time, and you finished a full Ironman or half Ironman or a marathon, when you cross that finish line, there's no feeling like it in the world, number one. And then number two, I call it like the aftershock of that feeling of accomplishment. It's months and years. You just tell your brain, man, if I can swim 2.5 miles and ride 112 miles and then run a marathon, oh my gosh, what's 5 Zoom calls in a row? Like, it's nothing.
That energetic momentum is what I hear. And I relate to that. I remember I did my first 50 miler and I felt like I was just running through every obstacle that came my way for the next 4, 5, 6 months after, because you're right. It just really helps, in my experience, and you can speak to this too, unlock a newfound level of confidence and conviction of what you're capable of, so long as you remain committed. Has that been your experience?
Yeah, I've authored 9 books. I actually have another one coming out this fall, but I don't remember which one this was. It may have been my 5th or 6th book. I have a physics background. I have several degrees. One of them is in physics, and in physics, as you know, we learn a lot about Einstein and Newton, and Einstein's got the theory of relativity, which is two objects in motion at the same speed. When they look at each other, it doesn't look like they're moving. But his general point is that everything, when it comes to motion, is relative. And so I kind of stole that, and in my book I talked about the theory of emotional relativity, meaning that whatever we experience, it's always benchmarked against something else. It's not objectively by itself. So if you experience the reward of working so hard and running through 50 miles or a full Ironman and crossing that line, so now that's your relative, that's your benchmark. And so everything after that becomes less. So doing hard things, doing challenging things in our lives, it's counterintuitive. They actually increase the relativity with which we experience future experiences. And having looked into brains now, I know what that means. That means we have new neurons in our brain, like these are memories that we have. And when we experience something challenging, we essentially benchmark this challenge against what's the most difficult thing that we've done and what's our biggest failure. So our brain puts context to everything. Like nothing is objective. We are the most biased, living creatures in the universe because we bring our story to the situation. And our story are these memories, these engrams, these neurons firing. And so, I'm sure what you felt for several months after finishing that 50K, and then it dies off, because we need a new benchmark. So, so that's my emotional theory of relativity that I coined and that got lost because I don't know that many people read that chapter in that book.
I think it's so important for the listener to really hear there too. Like I always come back to this quote I heard from one of my mentors: to expand, you must expand. And here you are breaking down so elegantly. There's this benchmark. And if you keep moving this threshold, this benchmark, inevitably the periods that once caused discomfort in your life, that internal or an invisible resistance, suddenly you don't feel that as much anymore until you push further and further. And so long as you keep showing up, taking action, what you can accomplish just becomes nothing short of incredible.
Yeah, so I would say you're exactly right. And I would argue, and this is coming out in my new book later this fall, which we won't talk about now, but I would argue, in addition to what you said, the other benchmark, what gives us context for everything is our trauma, right? Mm-hmm. So, I call our trauma the ultimate backdrop. It's the one thing that we benchmark risk. Right? So if you've never done anything and you're tasked to do something, you'll do it because you're just ignorant and naive. But if you have a history of tried something similar and failed miserably, your memory will say, whoa, dude, we don't want to feel that again. That was awful. We got ridiculed. People laughed at us or whatever it was. It was traumatic and it hurt. It was painful. We don't want to do that. So the other advantage, Paul, I think, of taking chances and pushing yourself is that it's a way to drown the trauma. Yes, it does expand our capacity to say, holy cow, what else can I do with my mind, with my body? That's wonderful. But the other side is all of us have trauma. And we have like big trauma, traumatic events that have happened to us in our life, but we have micro traumas every day. I might be driving and suddenly there's a car accident that occurred 10 minutes ago. And I see a car wreck and I know people have lost their lives. I wasn't there. I don't know those people, but I shake for a couple of hours after that, It's not my trauma, but I feel it. This little voice about our mortality, goes into my head. And so some version of micro trauma we experience every day. So we need things that can, depolarize these neurons that are out there, always trying to protect us. They're doing their job. It's a factory setting of our brain. Got to protect you. Got to protect you. But it's counterintuitive that the best way to get over trauma is to push yourself, like become successful in spite of it, and not be held hostage.
It's such an interesting point because I remember, so I ran this 50-mile event in Vegas, and it started at 10 o'clock in the evening. We went all night. And I remember being in a bar, catching up with an old friend before I went to the starting line, drinking just water for those of you listening. I know, hard to do in Vegas sometimes. But what was interesting is this bystander overheard our conversation, and I was going to prepare to run this race in a few hours. And he said to me, "What are you running from?" And I found that ironic because truthfully, I had just gone through an excruciatingly painful divorce. So I could have made the argument, I am running from that. But something came over me that helped me respond instead. And I chose to say, I'm running to my new future. And just hearing you break that down the way you did, I think it's such a powerful framework for us all to understand. Underneath all of that is still action to build that next life, or action to let go of the trauma, to unlearn, to heal from it, to step into the next best version of yourself.
Yeah. We go not so much as far as our imagination and creativity take us. We go as far as we let go of the trauma. Our trauma is our hostage. Our trauma is the shackles. And, I talk a lot about happiness. So we're going all over the place, but that's okay. But, in the research that I've done around happiness, and again, this thing that's enshrined in our Constitution, the pursuit of happiness, right? And all of us find that pursuit, whether it's in a poem, in a painting, singing, or taking a walk, or hugging and kissing your loved ones, like something that gives us this sense of peace and joy. Yeah. But, I find that a lot of so not happy moments, because we can have happy moments anytime, but happiness is based on our ability to recover and heal from our trauma. And if you're a human being and you want to live a good life, you will be faced with challenges. Because it's so easy to conform, it's so easy to sit and do nothing, it's so easy to not take chances. And as you know from your experience, the more that we push ourselves and do things that we thought we couldn't do, or even imagine things that we thought we couldn't imagine, or bring to life our imagination, the more I think we tell trauma, all right, bro, like, I gotcha, we were there together, but you're not going to hold me hostage. In quite the contrary, I'm going to use you to make my life better. I'm going to use you to go further.
Yeah, that's so powerful. Using those traumatic experiences as fuel to go, to grow, to expand, to evolve. Oh, that's really, really good.
Yeah, it's not the only thing you can do with trauma.
Or you can have the victim mentality and do nothing,
exactly.
Which unfortunately so many do. And that's why professionals like yourself, myself, are trying to leave such a positive impact in this world by helping people unearth and realize this powerful truth and opportunity.
Yeah.
I love what you said. You brought up the pursuit of happiness. And I've unpacked this several times just in my own reflective journaling prompts and in conversation with friends. Like, I would argue happiness is in the pursuit. How does that land for you? What are your thoughts?
Yeah. So Professor Sapolsky from Stanford, I'm a big fan of his. He's done these studies on dopamine hits. Yeah. And we associate dopamine hit as a reward. We've always said, if I get the reward, then my dopamine spikes. And studies are now showing, yes, that is in fact true, but the bigger spike is the anticipation of the reward. So preparing to do something where the possibility of a success or a dopamine hit is a higher spike. So if you look at the graphs, they actually spike earlier. They spike in the moments before. That's why some of us love training, or we love to practice, because pursuing that or learning a new golf shot or whatever it is, it's the anticipation of doing something. But I don't know that happiness is a constant. And I don't know that we can or should be happy all the time. But I think that it is a much easier ask of ourselves to say, when are the moments that I need to be happy, that I need to be at peace? And let me reserve my intellectual capacity, my memories, my skills for those moments. So if you were to take golf, let's just take golf. And golf, an average round of golf, let's just say 5 hours. Just humor me here. The amount of time that you're actually hitting a golf shot in those 5 hours is less than 15 minutes. And it's 15 minutes spread over 5 hours. It's not a contiguous 15 minutes. So the ask of self of a golfer to say, okay, so you're telling me that I only have to be, so to use your term, happy. So I would say calm, focused, committed to your shot, those kinds of phrases, cliches, is about 15 minutes. Suddenly, the test of golf becomes easier, right? If you're distracted, 5 minutes before you have to hit a shot, well, it's not good, but it's not bad. I mean, you have 5 minutes, which in neuroscience is eternity, because the brain gets distracted every 3 seconds. So there's a lot of time. So that's why I always tell the clients that I work with at the highest levels in all sports is, instead of trying to be perfect or trying to be happy or trying to be focused all the time at everything, pick the moments in the day. And then these performance moments, they might be spread out. One of them might be when I go home, I want to be present at dinner with my spouse and kids. Yeah. At that moment, I don't want to be thinking about the last 3 Zoom calls that I just had or the email that I got, which is so common. Right? So that might be one of your moments that you want to be perfect. But on your drive home from work, do you have to be perfect? Do you need to be happy? Well, yeah, but you don't have to be. But why spend all that time and energy? Because it takes a lot to tell your brain, okay, let's stop the distractions. Let me be really present here. So I think the ask, when the brain is wandering every 3 seconds, right? It is a tough ask to say all day long, for everything that I do, I got to be perfect. Like our average version is okay for average moments. Let's save our best moments for when those best moments are required. In golf, we need you to be your best in the last 30 seconds to 60 seconds before your backstroke or your backswing. That's the moment where you got to negotiate with yourself and your brain. You have your self-awareness about, where is my brain right now? Am I thinking about the last bogey? Am I thinking about, this is, hole 17, I got 1 hole to go, and if I make birdie or par, I shoot a certain score? So the past and the forward, our brain is the only place in the universe where a past and a future can come together. The only place. So I think it's a much more reasonable ask of self, whether as a human being or as an athlete or a golfer in this case, to say, I don't have to be perfect all the time. Let me save what it takes to be perfect for the moments that require it.
So good. So I want to take this off the golf course for a moment. And for those of you listening, bear with my attempt to visually describe this. But if we think of those peaks of happiness, those performance moments that Dr. Izzy just described, if you picture, and this goes back to probably geometry or algebra class, a sine wave. So there's these nice, smooth little humps. And if those are our peak performance moments or our moments of happiness, I'm of the belief that today, because of social media, the ability to compare and put up this facade on a profile, many people fall into this trap where they think everybody's life is so happy. They're happy all the time. They've got the money, the women, the men, the cars, the good life, whatever. And it puts them in a very tough predicament, thinking they should feel happy all the time. And here you and I are, Dr. Izzy, talking about reserving that energy, that effort for these moments. What is the ideal state of being that we should strive for in between? Is it contentment? Is it indifference? Like, what word do you use for those in-between moments?
Yeah, so I fully understand what you're saying. The framework that I use, however, before I respond to it is different. Right?
Please tell me.
Yeah. So I when I work with athletes, because I work with all kinds of people, but when I work with athletes, as I'm sure you do, Paul, a big part of my job is to make things simple. Mm-hmm. Like, I can explain things the correct way using neuroscience and psychology and physics and motion, and I'm going to look good and smart. But the person that I'm talking to is not going to get it. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't matter how I think. It only matters how people can understand something. So in my way to simplify this thing that we are experiencing called the human experience, you know, the most simplistic way that I can put it is, you know, I call it sensory input. Okay. So what you call happiness or contentment, I will argue is a heightened or an amplification of sensory input. So Can I ask you 3 questions?
Of course.
Okay. So Paul, think about one of your favorite meals that you have ever had. Can you think of it? You don't have to tell me. I'm just going to ask you some questions. Okay? So tell me 3 things that you were thinking, feeling, or doing during that favorite meal of yours. Just 3 words.
Thinking.
Feeling.
I was thinking about the texture of it from
the
spoon.
Hold on. So I would say texture.
Uh-huh. Feeling present.
Present, okay. One more word.
Doing was the last one.
Were you doing?
Eating.
Eating, okay. So you're eating. So I have texture, present, and eating. And those are 3 attributes that you're describing about this amazing meal that you had, okay? Mm-hmm. All right. Think about an amazing concert that you went to, a live concert. Can you think of one? All right. Absolutely. Now think of 3 words that describe your experience during that amazing concert.
Euphoric.
Euphoric.
Present.
Present.
Immersed.
Immersed. Okay, last question. Think of your best round of golf. Got it? Okay. Now give me 3 words that describe that best round of golf. How you thinking, feeling, doing?
Effortless. Quiet. So quiet would be for the thinking. Just flowing.
Flowing, okay. All right, so I wrote down 9 words. They're right here on this piece of paper. So I wrote down texture, present, eating, euphoric, present again, immersed, effortless, quiet, flowing. All these words are describing the exact same frequency in the human brain. These are lay terms that are describing the same state, yet you're doing 3 completely different experiences. One is eating food, one is listening to somebody else perform, and one is doing a task where there's a result like a score. But you're describing all of these are cognitive functions. You never said I had the most money. You never said I had the best clubs. You never said I was playing on the best golf course. You never said I had great seats at the concert. You never said how much money you paid for that meal. Right? So true wealth, in my opinion, and this is not just a lot of neuroscientists believe it, is this is what I mean. When we amplify our sensory input, that is wealth. If you can pick the moments where you want to feel human, all you got to do is amplify your sensory input. Feel more, hear more, see more, taste more, right? Smell more. And guess what? To do that, do you need to buy something? No. Do you need to be somewhere?
Nope.
No. Do you need to have a certain amount of resources with you to do that?
No.
No. Do you need some drugs to do that?
Nope.
No. Matter of fact, I would argue that people take drugs to do this because it quiets the noise down, but ultimately you're amplifying sensory input. When you're driving and you listen to music and your mind is wandering, but suddenly a song comes on that you really like, what do most people do? You turn it up.
Yeah.
You're amplifying that auditory stimulation because you want to be there. You want to listen to the lyrics because, I don't know, maybe it reminds you of high school and the girl that you were with or whatever the heck it is. So, happiness, this thing that you call happiness, which I call 10 Hertz, it's actually quite simple. In the moments that you want to experience what you call happiness, what I call 10 Hertz, this frequency, because all these states that you just told me, all of them, they're essentially attributes of a 10 Hertz frequency in your brain, which amplifies, again, if I'm putting, think about this. If I'm putting and I get to 10 Hertz, What does that mean? That means I feel my grip pressure. That means I feel the weight of my club head. That means I see the dimple on the ball that my putter is going to hit. And that means I see the blade of grass just outside the cup over which I want the ball to go. That is sensory input amplified. It is no different than these things that you just said here.
Yeah. So let's back up real quick and give the audience a context so we can go even deeper on sensory inputs and brainwaves. So if you listening, if you're not familiar with Dr. Izzy's work, I mean, there's so many books he's written, just so much depth of knowledge that you need to go get your hands on. But he's built a lot of his work around helping athletes manage their brainwave states, their sensory input. So Dr. Izzy, help lay the foundation briefly so we can go deeper. You know, for someone who's never heard of delta, theta, alpha, beta waves, what are they? And then ultimately, how do they influence performance?
Okay. So first of all, and this is coming out in my new book, but it's also in the one that I just wrote called Your Brain Swings Every Club.
Yeah.
We must understand as human beings that electricity is the language of the brain. Let's just start there. And if you think about it, it has to be, Paul. It cannot possibly be anything else. It cannot be light because we're opaque. It cannot be gravity because that's pulling you down. The reason it has to be electricity is one and only one reason, and that's speed. If there's a bug behind my right shoulder right now as I'm talking to you that's biting me, my sensory input has to say, bite, not good, and it has to geolocate exactly, because I need to know it's behind my right shoulder and not on my ankle. And then my left hand, because my right hand can't go behind my right shoulder, has to somehow go very quickly in a matter of seconds and boom, and find that spot where the bug was and scratch it until I get new information that says, oh, pain gone. There is no other medium that can facilitate that level of cognitive and motor coordination than electricity. Okay?
Wow.
So electricity is the language of the brain, and therefore, if you're living life in your brain, it is the language of the human experience. So within electricity, and by the way, that electricity is the exact same electricity as a light bulb and the wires going through your house. It's measured. They're Hertz, right? So there's 5 Hertz, there's 10 Hertz, and imagine that you have 2 light bulbs in your house and they look identical. They're the same size. But one says 20 watts and one says 200 watts, but they're the same size. Clearly, the 200-watt light bulb is going to be shining much brighter. So our brain also has the capacity to go from 20 hertz to 200 hertz, depending on the stimuli. So if I start cussing you right now, if the conversation is going really good, right? I'm enjoying it. I think you are. You're smiling. So, but if I start cussing at you and I start calling your name, you're like, whoa, where did this come from? What kind of a guest do I have? Now your brain starts to say, how do I get off this Zoom call? I gotta oh my God, what a jerk. He's a bastard. He's a phony. He's a fraud. So all these new thoughts that are coming up your head is moving your brain's light bulb towards 200. Mm-hmm. And the problem with higher frequencies is not that they're negative or that they're high frequency. So let me wrap it together, okay? The problem with higher frequency is that what does it do? It completely drowns sensory input. Okay. Because sensory input is by definition low. If I have you looking at a tree out there on the fairway that you want to, let's say it's on the left side of the fairway and you want to fade it off of that as a right-handed golfer, okay? What did that tree do to you ever? Nothing. It didn't call you a name. It's just there. So there's not a lot of attachment to that tree, right? So sensory input, by definition, carries a lot of low frequency, unless it's obviously it's painful. When you listen to music, when you're eating that food and tasting it, like what did that taste do to you? Nothing. Right? When you hear that amazing bass or the drums at the concert that you were in, what did that bass, that auditory stimulation do to you? Nothing. So electricity is a language of the brain, and therefore it is the language of the human experience. The higher the electricity, the more it drowns sensory input and the more we are not present. Okay. So the trick is, by virtue of being human, that electricity is going to change every second, because we're consuming new stimuli. Like when you hang up over here, you may go and check the emails that you've missed out in the last hour because you were talking to me. And one of them might be from your bank and say, yo, Paul, we're broke. Right? I mean, I'm just making stuff up. And you're like, wait, what? It's not April 1st. Like, what's going on over here? So it takes one moment for your brain to what we call spike. And once your brain has spiked, well, then there's no sensory input. So it's no different than a golfer. If in the last 10 seconds before I putt, I chip, I hit a drive, I hit a wedge, my brain says, don't go left. Mm-hmm. Well, now I have spiked. So the problem with the negative thought isn't the negative thought by itself, because that's your brain doing its job. The problem with a negative thought is that it completely drowns sensory input. So suddenly your grip pressure changes without you knowing it. Suddenly your backswing becomes shorter or longer without you knowing it. Because the feel, the sensory input of your feel of your shoulder turn or your hip loading or whatever the case may be is drowned by the higher frequency. So that's why I'll go back to the earlier comment I made. For athletes, one of the things that I teach them is you only have to be perfect in those last 30, 60 seconds. And that's where if you can do something to spike down the electricity, not permanently, but long enough to hit the shot, well, then you're good. So there are different bands of electricity, the alpha, theta, these are all bands. So alpha or beta, or I'm sorry, theta, like 5 hertz to about 20 hertz, and then so on. Mm-hmm. But the main thing is, instead of getting lost in that nerdy neuroscience stuff, is just understand that there is electricity, and the higher it is, the more you're not present, the more your sensory input is drowned. And therefore, you are going to be living in the past or the future, because that's your brain, again, trying to protect you based on the context of your trauma. Yeah. If you have the thought, don't go left, nobody wirelessly sent you that thought, don't go left. Yeah. So where'd it come from? Well, it came from your inventory. And that inventory, more than likely, wasn't good, which means, by definition, it carried a higher frequency. Which means the odds now that you've drowned your sensory input and you've compromised your motor sequencing is extremely high. That's why I always tell people that I can tell the quality of a tee shot based on what happens on the green. If a guy makes a 15-foot putt for anything, for birdie, for par, for bogey, the odds that guy's going to hit a good shot suddenly go up. Because that's you just saved something. If a guy misses a 2-foot putt for birdie, right? If a guy misses a 2-foot putt for birdie, the odds that they're going to hit a poor shot are extremely high because they've spiked. And spikes don't come down naturally. They can take hours. So there are certain types of trauma that last a lifetime. I have trauma. I have multiple traumas. And some of them I experienced 45 years ago. I don't know, truthfully, I probably shouldn't tell you this, but I don't know if there are too many days that go by that some little thing about what happened to me 40 years ago doesn't come into my brain. Yeah. But I recognize that it's a spike, and I recognize that I'm no longer present, so I spike down, and then I try to be present. And I try to say, well, how can I use it? And my trauma helps me build awareness that I'm not present. So again, I'm using it. I spent decades being a hostage to my trauma. I'm not going to do that anymore. Yeah. And in golf, we are a hostage to a bogey on the second hole or a pull shot on the third hole for the rest of the round.
So how do we spike down? What's the intentionality, the action we bring? And then the follow-up to that is, what is so unique, special, and powerful about that 10 hertz area?
Yeah, so 2 magical things happen at 10 hertz, right? Okay. In my view. So the first one we've talked about, which is that it amplifies your sensory input. Yeah. So our sensory input is constantly there. You're constantly seeing something unless you're sleeping. I mean, even as you're sitting now, if I asked you, for example, okay, well, let's just do it. Close your eyes, Paul. All right? I want you to feel the bottom of your feet and just see, without speaking out loud, you can absorb the sensory input coming from your feet. Feel the bottom of your glutes on your chair. Feel the tension in your shoulders, in your traps, and just see if you can wiggle them out. Take a breath through your nose and exhale very slowly through your mouth. And gently open your eyes. So give me 3 words that describe how you feel now.
Calm, present, aware.
Are they similar to these words?
Spot on.
Right? So how long did it take you to do that?
30 seconds.
30 seconds. So if 2 minutes before a golf shot, I feel myself spiking, can I do any one of those to spike myself down?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. There's no penalty. I mean, there's a penalty with, in golf, if you get a band and you start stretching and you use a training aid or you do stuff, but there's no penalty for doing exactly what I said. And that skill set is on you.
Yeah.
It's on you. So these are what we call a neurohack. So what happens, so again, all these states that you're describing on this blue card that I wrote down. So you said texture present, eating, euphoric present, immersed, effortless, quiet, flowing. This is all around 10 hertz. And you just got there in about 30 seconds. So I invented a lot of these, and it's not just me, our ancestors did them too. But I used sort of new technology to confirm that they do, in fact, take you to 10 hertz. And typically, the breathing one has been the exclusive one. It turns out the breathing one is a good one. It works. But of all the neurohacks that we have tested, we found the breathing one has the least efficacy. It works, but it brings you down somewhere between 8 and about 15 hertz, while the other ones can bring you down at a much bigger. Like if you're at 60 hertz and you do a breathing exercise, you'll get down to maybe 45 hertz. That's still a long way from 10. You know what I mean? So, but if you're at 25 hertz, maybe you just pull something on the left edge of the fairway and I breathe. I do a breathing activity, a yoga breathing or any type of other traditional forms of breathing. Well, that works. It will get you from 25 towards 10. But from 60 to 10, we got to do something that's much more powerful. So we've invented this library of these neurohacks that you can use by using your senses. And again, the magic of 10 hertz is it amplifies your sensory input. There's another magic. There are 2 benefits of 10 hertz. The second benefit is it increases your existing cognitive functionality. So let's say that a kid is taking a test or a quiz, okay? And they started very hard, but they have what you and I would call performance anxiety. Performance anxiety is a lay term, in my opinion, that basically is describing that they're spiking.
Yeah.
So the information, the inventory of knowledge is already in their brain. They've studied for it, they've done all the stuff. But in the moment that they sit down to take the quiz, they're spiking so they can't access it. So the second benefit, in addition to the amplification of sensory input of 10 hertz, which is using neurohacks, is that it allows you access to your existing inventory.
Yes.
You suddenly remember a random conversation from 20 years ago, 5 years ago, a book that you read, a conversation that you had, a training seminar that you went to. Like, where is all this information coming from? No one is wirelessly sending it to me. No, it was already in my head. I can just now access it. So those are the 2 magical things that happen that you describe when you say quiet and flowing. That's what's going on. Your sensory input is amplified and your cognitive functionality is increased. But cognitive functionality is not like, like you've increased your horsepower. The horsepower was there. You've just given access to all parts of your engrams, of your memories. And your brain is retrieving the right ones. And that's when your brain retrieves the right memories, we call that optimism or confidence. When your brain retrieves the wrong memories, the traumatic ones, then we call it lack of confidence or pessimism. Those are lay terms, but both of them are access issues. So what your brain accesses, I mean, just think about it. Guys lose confidence all the time. Athletes lose confidence all the time. Well, confidence is not really a thing. I know people will laugh at me. Your audience say, well, wait a minute. Everyone uses that term. But it's not an eye, it's not a nose, it's not an ear, it's not a gland, it's not a synapse, it's not a neuron. But it's a term that we've coined to try to understand the complexity of the human brain. But I'm here to tell you that confidence and pessimism or lack of confidence are exactly the same thing, and they're both access issues. Confidence is you have higher access to what you already have, and lack of confidence is you don't have access to what you already have. Why would your brain, when you leave the golf course, when you're done, and someone says, how'd you play? You immediately spew out your 3 worst shot or the places where you could have saved the strokes. And you don't talk about the 30 to 50 pretty decent shots that you hit, right? Because the negative shots carry a higher frequency, so they're bullies.
Yeah. I love what you just shared on confidence. It makes total sense to me. And I realize, like you, I'm a bit of an oddball and abnormality as well. But for me, like I always just kind of thought of it in my own mind, especially I do a lot of public speaking and I prepare. But when I was younger and just getting started, I would have those temporary freeze up moments where I forget what I wanted to say, or I couldn't access the story that I had just practiced 24 times the last couple of weeks. And I began to recognize that the more calm and grounded I was, walking out on stage, if you will, the easier I could access or retrieve those memories. So for me, not having the neuroscience or the real framework of science to put behind it, I recognize that a lot of my prep didn't need to be regurgitating my lines and my notes. It needed to be accessing this ideal performance state. So instead of poring over to my slides for weeks, I would know the material, but I'd spend more time breathing, grounding, calming before it was time to shine. And that seemed to be kind of my recipe to, quote, be confident or feel confident when it was time to perform. Fascinating.
Well, you're saying exactly what we talked about, which is that we don't have to be perfect all the time. We cannot be perfect all the time. We just need to be perfect or at 10 hertz when we need to be. So for you going on stage, the things that you did, all the things that you did, to me are neurohacks, and they're designed to spike down your electricity. And you learned on your own that if I reduce the electricity in my head, I am more present because sensory input is amplified. I mean, people talk about being present. What is being present? Like, that's a cliche. Like, the actionable part of the cliche being present is I have very high sensory input. I'm seeing something, I'm feeling something, I'm tasting something. That's what being present means. So by you doing those things before you went on stage and to change your approach, you are basically spiking down the electricity. Remember, electricity is a language of the brain. It has to be. And therefore, electricity is a language of the human experience. And why all of us aren't talking about this, I don't know. Maybe because it's a newer science. But, I do cover parts of this in my book, Your Brain Swings Every Club. And then I have a really good one coming out this fall. Maybe it's my 10th one, hopefully out in October, November timeframe. And it's called Chasing 10 Hertz. And how all of us, if you think of a linear equation, something minus something plus something divided by something under something, but there's always an equal. On the far right side, there's an equal. What's the output of that equal? I will argue that every single thought and human function and activity that we do is to get to 10 hertz to our brain, because the brain loves 10 hertz. It wants to live in 10 hertz. Everything else is suffering.
So I'm going to use a very overused word, a very overstudied word, term, concept, flow. 10 hertz flow. The same but different, the same. Tell me more.
So flow, again, I understand flow very well. And so first of all, flow is not a thing. Now, before you throw something at me, what do I mean by that? Meaning it's not an eye, a ear, a nose, a gland, an organ. So by that, I mean it's not a thing. It's a construct. Now, there's a company out of Canada that actually put some biomarkers next to flow. And there are 3 biomarkers next to the state. So the first one is electricity, called EEG. The next one is your heart rate. And the third one is the oxygen level in your brain. So when you take these 3 biomarkers, the combination of low frequency, a certain state of heart rate, and by the way, heart rate and flow, there is a correlation but not a causation. I used to do a lot of speed running drills when I was training for my Ironmans, And when I was running, I mean, I would look at my Garmin or my watch, and I mean, my heart rate was 150, 155, like zone 3, zone 4. But my EEG was around 10, 12. So we call it a runner's high.
Yeah.
Right? So heart rate is not a true measure of flow state. Right? So now there are other cases when my heart rate is low, so is my EEG. But the combination of these three biomarkers, the electricity in your brain, your heart rate in your brain, and then using an oximeter, the oxygen level in your brain, those three combined is what is in effect people are calling flow state. But flow state is in effect, I mean, just to make things simple, I respect the people that came up with the term. I love how the word itself, I mean, Bruce Lee, frankly, was the person that really started it because he talked about flowing like the water. I mean, he did that in the 1960s. The guys that came up with flow state came up with that in the early 90s. But, you know, the term flow has this sort of, you know, liquidness, sort of kind of rhythmic kind of thing to it. Mm-hmm. So I like that it's a cliche term that all of us can use. So I'm not opposed to it, but it is not a thing. But in reality, what it is, it's a combination of those three things that I just talked about. The most important of which is the 10 hertz.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm going to throw a curveball into the conversation purely for selfish reasons. I'll admit it. So everyone listening, this question's for me. The perception of time in the brain, different hertz. Can you help me better understand how we perceive time and how and perhaps why certain situations time flies by? Sometimes things can't be done quick enough. Because I'm going to give the context here and then I'll shut my mouth. I have always considered myself someone who processes things very quickly. And there are certain things and hacks, if you will, I can do to help myself better slow down and, you know, heighten my sensory experiences. I'm now learning to put better words to these experiences. Talk to us a little bit more about the perception of time and how that works in the brain.
Yeah, so you've asked me a lot of good questions on this podcast. That was the most brilliant one. So that is not a curveball. That is a brilliant question, and I applaud you genuinely for asking me that question. I have studied it, I've explored it, I've tried to experience it myself, because when I speak with amazing people, artists, athletes, entrepreneurs, I've had the privilege in 35 years of working to meet these people and to work with them, and to have their trust to the point where they'll be honest with me and tell me really what's going on. And I'm sure you've experienced as part of our job is people trust us. Yeah. But one of the attributes that they describe when they're in this flow state or 10 hertz state is that things seem slow. Mm-hmm. So I have asked myself this contraction or expansion of time, what is that really? And so this is what happens. 1 second on a Monday, let's say on the PGA Tour, is the same as 1 second on Thursday morning in your round and 1 second on Sunday afternoon when you're trying to win a golf tournament. The unit of time does not change. Mm-hmm. But I will tell you, bar none, 1 second feels a lot faster Sunday afternoon when you're trying to close a tournament. Or the fourth quarter of a game. I work with NASCAR drivers, or the last 50 laps of the race. Yeah. Right? Or the ninth inning in baseball. You talk to any athlete, or the fifth test in tennis, everything seems faster. So what gives us the perception that something is fast or slow, again, is the amplitude of the electricity in your brain. When your brain is processing lots of thoughts, so I'm talking about quantity, I'm not even talking about amplitude. That would be another thing. So in the fourth quarter, in the back nine, in the last 20 laps of a NASCAR race, your brain knows that something is about to end. A score is going to be determined permanently. A position will be like, it's going to end and all this stuff is going to, and it will be finalized. Yeah. So the consequences of what happens in those last few minutes or holes of golf are very high, and therefore the amplitude and the noise goes up. When there's a lot of electricity in the brain and your brain is triaging so many different things, it has to work faster. It's not working faster. It has to work faster. So we perceive time to be faster. Conversely, let's go back to this little blue thing here. So you use the term texture present, eating, euphoric present, immersed, effortless, quiet, flowing. Sensory input, by definition, is not fast. If you're looking at a tree, if you're listening to the bass of the concert, if you're looking at the blade of a grass over which you want the ball to roll on a putt, that inherently is lower frequency. So time feels slower. When I work with NBA players, and when they're making shots, one of the things that they tell me is the basket feels big, but it's not bigger. But it feels big because sensory input is amplified. It's like sitting in the car and your favorite song comes on and you turn up the volume. It's still the same song and the lyrics, but the amplitude is higher, so it's more present in your brain. Right? So time feels slower in the sensory world, and it feels much faster in the cognitive world. And in the human brain, the sensory cortex, the thalamus, is really right next door to the hippocampus, which is where all of our memories are. And if you think about it, it's a brilliant design. Whoever did it is a brilliant, because when you taste something, when you see something, you want quickly to make sense of it. You want to know, ooh, this tastes bad, I'm going to stop eating it. Or this tastes good, let me take another bite. But how does your brain know what value of taste to add? Well, it's going through your inventory. No one is wirelessly sending information and saying, taste is good, continue eating. Like, it doesn't work that way. Our brain is doing that based on our memories. So time, we have the ability, and my God, I may lose so many of your audience at this point, but I will tell you that we have the ability to slow time. Mm-hmm. And if you have the ability to slow time, you amplify your human experience and you make it richer.
100%.
Right? So one of the things that I do, I'm a big massage guy. Like, I try to go every 2 or 3 weeks. I'm getting old, and as an Ironman athlete, like, recovery is such a big part of it. But, and typically these massages are 45 minutes, 50 minutes long. I realized decades ago that if every time he or she would just, push something in my body, like create some tension with their hands, and if I send all my thoughts to there, the 15-minute massage felt like a 2-hour massage. Conversely, if while she was giving me a massage, I was thinking about what I had to do after the massage and all the checklist sort of thing, it felt like it was a 10-minute massage. Mm-hmm. Like, I was like, oh, are we done?
Yeah.
Right? You know what I mean? So we can slow down time. Again, my goal is to make things simple. The highest human experiences, the highest human performances, they all happen in this state. It's not a secret. It's never been a secret. Mm-hmm. Find me one person who said, oh, I had the best experience in my life and I was angry the whole time. I'm serious. Like, it doesn't make any sense. No. Right? So the best version of ourselves, I mean, I asked you 3 different experiences and you gave me the same attributes. So why is it a secret? Why not just get to this state like you do before you speak? So slowing down time is an amazing way to increase your human experience and therefore concurrently increase your wealth. No amount of materialistic possessions will slow down time. If I have a $15,000 Rolex or a $50, Ironman watch, neither one of those two is going to slow down time for me. They're not sensory input because they're materials.
Yeah. I'm so glad I asked that question. And I'm going to ask one more because now I'm curious, and I know some of my audience will resonate with this, some of it won't, but then talk to us about, I'm trying to use my verbiage here correctly, THC, psilocybin, the impact, and I'll just speak candidly. My experience with THC in microdosed amounts is an increased perception that time is moving 10 times slower than ever before.
Yeah.
And when I have big blocks of creative work, I will add that to my morning routine in order to feel like I am so, to use one of my words, immersed, lost in that project, that it feels like my processing speed kicks in overdrive, but I get 4 hours of work done in what feels like 20 minutes. And it's a beautiful, powerful experience.
Yeah.
What's taking place when we start adding in elements like that?
Well, it's the same thing. It's getting you to 10 hertz, but I will tell you, and I know you don't want to hear this, and that's okay, that we're collaborating here.
Yeah.
It is no different than taking any other form of drug or any other form of addiction. I mean, when gamblers go gamble, they're chasing 10 hertz. When you do those things, you're chasing 10 hertz.
Yeah.
I always tell people, like, if you take your hands like this, Paul, just put your hands together like this, if you don't mind, right? Now, if you look above, from your wrist above, that is the size of your brain. It's incredibly small, and it's caged in a skull, and 60-some% of it is fluid. So you cannot touch one part of it and not touch everything else of it. To me, those forms of getting to 10 hertz come with consequences. Whereas if you do what I told you to do, there are no consequences.
Yeah.
Right? So they are lesser expensive ways, lesser harmful ways. Everything comes, I mean, people get drunk. I mean, I have so many good friends, regrettably, that are highly functioning alcoholics. And they will tell me, like, I feel great when I'm drunk. I don't worry about anything. I'm just present, you know. And they love that feeling because their brains have shut off the past and they've shut off the future and they've amplified sensory input. But look at the cost of that. The hangover, the relationships compromised, the cognitive functionality that's damaged. Yeah. So when we take any outside agent, we must understand. I hate to say this, to varying degrees, we are compromising. It comes at a cost. We are compromising what could otherwise be done so much easier. So I don't do that. I don't do what you do, but I can get the same results as you do. Yeah. The exact same, if not better, by doing some version of the sensory, neurohacks and those kinds of things, and by studying the brain. And I mean, I even change the words that I'm using. Like, I change my vocabulary because I want my brain to think in a certain vocabulary. I'm telling my brain, no, dude, use these words. Use this tone. When I'm talking to myself with my mouth shut, you can change the tone of your monologue, just like you can change the tone of your dialogue.
Oh, that's
right?
Good.
So there are many ways to get there. I am not a fan of any of these. And right now, everything that you've said is at a global, like, it's not just in athletes, but in human beings. Because the noise in our brain is so high right now because of the devices and the stimulation, that we're looking for anything that can just shut the noise down.
Yeah. So let me get you out of here on this, because that's fascinating. And now that I have a better framework, a better list of neurohack tools, I can do differently, which is exciting. If you had to distill, and I know this is difficult, but one actionable takeaway for the audience to leave this conversation with, to start taking more targeted action to a 10 hertz state, what do you leave them with?
Give yourself a reasonable ask. A reasonable ask is, do not try to be perfect all day long and at everything. Pick 2 times a day that you need to be perfect.
Oh.
And just focus, put all your energy into those 2 times. It may be a business meeting, it may be a personal thing, it may be a certain golf shot that you have. Negotiate with yourself, and when you wake up, look at your calendar and say, okay, these are the 2 most important events of my day. I'm going to put everything on these 2 events. The rest, my average is okay. I think you will find some amazing results, because I coach that, and I have been for decades, and I know what happens. I know how that story ends. I think your audience, it's a reasonable ask. I only got to be perfect, my best version twice a day. I can handle that.
Dr. Izzy, this has been nothing short of phenomenal. It has completely exceeded my already incredibly high expectations. So thank you so much.
Oh, you got it. My pleasure.
Yeah, my only gripe of course, my only gripe in preparing for this was that your book you're working on isn't out yet, because I'm excited to get my hands on it. Where can our listeners go to get your other books, to learn from you? I mean, you have so much knowledge out there designed to help people. Where can they go to learn more about you?
Yeah, so my latest book on golf, The Brain Swings Every Club, as well as my other 8 books, are all on Amazon. The last book is an ebook as well as audio. My 10th book is coming out this fall. It's called Chasing 10 Hertz. And it's not about golf. It's really about life. And frankly, most of the things that you and I talked about today, the book is done. So it's actually already gone through the editing process. So now it's going through the publishing process. So I can confidently say that it should be out at some point this fall. I am on social media. I actually don't do my own social media. I have a young man who's a really good kid who does it for me. But when you see my name out there, it's not really me. But you can follow me on X at Izzy Justice, or Instagram at Dr. Izzy Justice. I try my best to put out positive content. I don't engage with anybody with anything negative on those platforms. I'm a big fan of any human being that's trying to improve the human experience, even if I disagree with how they do it. So I refuse to engage with anybody that says my stick is better than your stick. My argument is, if your stick is helping somebody, dude, more power to you.
Love that. Well, thank you again for your time. This was incredible.
All right, cheers.
Yeah, and for those of you listening, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode. I know you found an indescribable amount of value in this conversation. So do us a favor, listen to it again, have your note-taking device handy, and go share it with a friend, a handful of friends, not just your golfing friends. There is so much wisdom and insight to help anybody, regardless of their industry, sport, or passion, level up, become that next best version of themselves. And if you haven't done so already, it means a lot. It goes a long way to take 30 seconds to leave a genuine rating or review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you're listening to today's show. Thank you again for listening. Have a phenomenal rest of your day. Hit them straight this weekend, and we'll catch you in the next episode.